So the former president of the United States is absolutely melting down after Judge Engeron, the New York judge overseeing his civil fraud trial, ruled that he owes $355 million to the state of New York and is now barred from doing business there for 3 years after finding that the former president lied about his net worth and assets on a range of different financial documents for the Trump organization. Now, before I show you this completely unhinged and panicked meltdown by the former president, I want to break down a couple of important statements made by Judge Engeron in this really blistering 92-page ruling against the former president and his businesses and how they arrived at this number. So, Judge Engeron has ordered Trump to pay about 355 million in profits from his business fraud, and also stated that the former president will have to pay interest on that money, which adds roughly $100 million in additional fees that the former president will have to pay. And here's how he arrived at that number. So Judge Engeron basically said that the Trump organization fraud saved them about $168 million in interest and then fined them that amount. The former president will have to pay interest on that $168 million as well. Engeron also ruled that Trump and his companies were liable for over $126 million in ill-gotten profits from the sale of the old post office in Washington, D.C., a contract the judge says, quote, was obtained through the use of false SFC statements of financial condition. On those profits as well, Trump will have to pay interest on those judgments. And then finally, the judge ruled that Trump and his companies were liable for $60 million in profits from the sale of Ferry Point in the Bronx. So he's going to have to pay interest on that as well. Now, here's straight from the opinion by Justice Engeron on the reprehensibility of the Trump organization and their conduct. The Trump organization does not have the ability to operate with a functional financial reporting structure that would protect against fraud in the future. The fact that there are virtually no internal controls in place at the Trump organization, quote, creates an atmosphere conducive to fraud. Moreover, the fact that the Trump organization has refused to prepare SFCs, even though various loan covenants obligate them to do so ever since the monitor was appointed, leads the court to conclude that the Trump organization cannot or will not prepare an accurate SFC that is GAAP compliant and that values assets at their estimated current values. That the Trump organization has taken to manufacturing its own version of its assets, one that fails to include any valuations, is a telling admission that it simply cannot or will not prepare an SFC without committing fraud. So he then goes on to talk about Trump and his organization's shocking inability to admit any wrongdoing, which is right on brand with all things Trump. He never takes responsibility for anything and essentially says that they cannot be relied upon in any way, shape, or form to not continue committing the same fraud in the future. So now, in addition to the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit, Trump now owes over $500 million in civil judgments and interest, which, according to his own financial statements, which again, we can't really believe anything he puts on a financial document, he doesn't actually have in cash. According to two different financial statements that the former president has filed, he has between $50 and $75 million in cash. So he either has to sell off his assets like Mar-a-Lago or maybe his stake in Truth Social in order to come up with anywhere close to the amount of money that he needs in order to pay these judgments. Now, before I show you this meltdown that he is having on Truth Social today, here is a few clips from a rally he gave over the weekend about both this ruling and his litany of pending legal troubles.
Right now, but they think they are. They think they're tough. But a lot of them come to me and they'll say, how do you do it? You go through all these subpoenas. You got indicted. Now, in my whole life, I didn't know what indictment meant.
So clearly the former president does not know how you spell indictment. Obviously, it starts with an I, not an N. Now, here's what he had to say about Judge Engeron's ruling.
All you see is bitterness and revenge and hatred. Judge Engeron just fined me $355 million for doing everything right. 355.
And here's what Trump had to say about the gag order in his criminal case in Washington, D.C., which a judge placed on him in order to prevent him from continuing to intimidate witnesses.
Wait till you hear about the unconstitutional gag order. That's going to be great. The this judge, he gagged. He doesn't want me to talk. You're not allowed to talk, because when you hear me talk, you'll say, oh, wow, this is a corrupt system.
So again, this gag order is because Trump was literally taking to Truth Social and rallies to attack witnesses at the trial, essentially intimidating them. So the gag order basically says he can face both civil penalties and possibly even jail time if he continues to violate the order. We all know what he's trying to do. He's trying to intimidate witnesses from testifying against him. Now, under the weight of this intense financial burden that Trump has been placed under in just the last couple weeks, these $500 million in judgments have been issued. He's started to collect donations for a GoFundMe. He's rolled out a new sneaker line where he's selling Trump branded shoes for $400 a piece. And he's emailing supporters begging to get campaign money to help him pay his legal judgments. But that's clearly not going to be enough to come anywhere close to covering his costs of over $500 million. So he's doing what he does best and is lashing out at the judges and prosecutors overseeing his cases. This morning, he rattled off a string of unhinged posts on Truth Social saying, why was the corrupt New York State Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James allowed to dump her lawsuit using a never used for this before statute with no defaults, no complaints, no victims, only success onto the desk of Trump-hating radical left judge Arthur Engeron, one of the most overturned judges in the state, 4 times on this witch hunt alone. You can't pick your judge, which Bragg did and deranged Jack Smith did in D.C. These cases should all be thrown out. Now, obviously, that is a lie. He then went on to say, my financial statements were understated, not overstated. That is why the crooked, hand-picked judge said that Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, was only worth $18 million when it is worth 50 to 100 times that amount. Other properties also. They didn't even include, quote, brand value, known and accepted to be worth many billions of dollars. This all fit the fake narrative of the corrupt and many times overturned judge and the radical left, Soros-backed slob of an attorney general whose primary goal is, in close coordination with the White House and like all the other litigation against me, an attack on crooked Joe Biden's political opponent, me. Same story in Georgia, New York, and Washington, D.C. Nothing like this has ever happened in our country before. It is strictly third world Russia, China at their worst. But fear not, we will win big on November 5th and make America great again. He then continued on this tirade. All political prosecutions of your favorite president, me, must stop immediately. We are in the middle of an election, perhaps the most important election in the history of our country, and these radical left lunatic prosecutors and judges are not allowed to be doing this. Why didn't they start 3 years ago? Because they wanted to interfere with the presidential election of 2024. That's why. According to Section 985.5 of the Justice Department's Justice Manual, federal prosecutors and agents may never select the timing of any action, including investigative steps, criminal charges, or statements for the purpose of affecting any election or for any purpose of giving an advantage or disadvantage to any candidate or political party. This is election interference and must be immediately stopped. I should not have to go through any fake prosecutions before the election. This is communism and a threat to democracy. Our country will not stand for it. Make America great again. He then finished up with a fake headline that says, breaking corrupt New York judge rules against Trump, and an ask to contribute to his campaign. Now, it's hard to actually see how Trump comes up with the cash to pay these judgments. Again, he does not have the cash on hand, and he doesn't seem willing to sell his businesses or any of his real estate or Mar-a-Lago in order to come up with the cash. So his attorneys have said that they're going to appeal these rulings, but keep in mind, if they appeal these and lose, These judgments will continue to accrue interest of nearly $50 million a year in the appeals process. So he's taking a huge gamble by appealing these and could end up owing nearly $1 billion in judgments if he loses again on appeal. Now, we're going to continue bringing you all the latest news and legal developments for Trump and everything going on with Republicans through the election cycle, but we can't do it without you. So please do us a huge favor, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and help grow the progressive ecosystem through the election. Thanks so much.